A man who walked with kings, yet never lost touch with his roots. Who spoke of peace and unity, even in the darkest of times. Whose voice resonated with the oppressed, with the unheard, with the souls that yearn for a better tomorrow. This was no ordinary man. This was Lucky Dube, the reggae king of South Africa. He was more than music. He was a symbol of courage. He dared to speak up against the system, against the powers that be, against the walls of hate that were built to keep people apart. Yet, here's the paradox. Lucky Dube never courted controversy. He simply lived his life, poured his heart into his music, and the rest was history. We'll take you back to the beginning, to the days when Lucky was just a boy with a dream. We'll weave through the milestones, the challenges, the triumphs, and the tragedies that shaped his journey. And we'll show you why Lucky Dube was much more than just a musician. He was a voice, a symbol, a legend. Before we dive into the depths of his story, before we make this journey through time, let's set the stage. Let's paint the backdrop of South Africa during the apartheid era, a nation divided, a society segregated, and a government that thrived on fear. It was in this complex, turbulent landscape that Lucky Dube emerged. And now, picture this. It's August 3, 1964, and in a small town in the eastern Transvaal of South Africa, amidst the rolling hills and the deep valleys, a baby boy is born. They named him Lucky Philip Dube. Why, you ask? Because his birth brought a glimmer of hope to a family grappling with hard times. Little did they know they were welcoming not just a son, but a legend in the making. Lucky's childhood was a tapestry woven with both joy and sorrow. He grew up with 6 siblings, their lives echoing the struggles of many during apartheid. When Lucky was 11, his father left the family, leaving them in the care of their mother, Sarah. It was a daunting task, raising 7 children on her own, but Sarah's strength knew no bounds. She worked tirelessly as a domestic worker, ensuring that her children had a roof over their heads and food on their table. Growing up in Ermelo, a small town steeped in racial segregation, Lucky saw firsthand the harsh realities of apartheid. At the tender age of 13, he began working on farms to help support his family. It was a tough, often thankless job, but it instilled in him a strong work ethic and a deep sense of empathy for those who toiled for little reward. He attended school intermittently, but his formal education took a back seat to the demands of work and life. Music, however, remained a constant. He found solace in the tunes that echoed from the neighboring Zulu kingdom, absorbing their rhythms and lyrics like a sponge. This was his early education, a crash course in the soul of South Africa. As a teenager, Lucky's fascination with music blossomed into action. He formed a band with friends, christening themselves the Love Brothers. It was here that Lucky's journey from a farm boy to a musical prodigy truly began. Lucky's musical tastes were as diverse as the people he'd met in his travels. He was influenced by everything from the soulful melodies of American artists like Jackie Wilson to the pulsating beats of local Zulu bands. However, his true passion lay in reggae. It was a genre that resonated with his experiences, his dreams, and his fight for equality. In 1984, Lucky Dube released his debut album, Rastas Never Die. It was a modest start, a small step on a path that would lead him to greatness. But it was just the beginning. With each album, he delved deeper into the themes that defined his career: love, social commentary, and of course, his unwavering faith in humanity. In the late 1980s, South Africa was a powder keg of emotions. The pressure was mounting, the calls for change were getting louder, and the government's grip was starting to slip. Amidst this turmoil, Lucky Dube found himself at a crossroads. He could have chosen to stay in South Africa and ride the wave of change, or he could take the riskier path and leave his homeland for the uncertainties of Europe. In 1989, Dube made the leap of faith, setting foot on European soil with only his guitar and his dreams. It was a brave move, leaving behind everything familiar for the unknown. But it was a decision that would shape not just his career, but also the course of his life. Europe was a revelation for Lucky Dube. Here was a new audience, a new stage, and a new challenge. He performed, he connected, and he learned. But it wasn't just about the music. It was about adapting, evolving, and growing. This period of his life was more than just a career move. It was a test of resilience, of talent, and of spirit. Upon his return to South Africa, Dube's music began to reflect the global influences he'd absorbed during his time in Europe. It was a fusion of traditional African beats with international flair, creating a sound that was uniquely his own. This marked a significant shift in his career, establishing him not just as a local artist, but as a global ambassador of African reggae. The year 1994 marked a turning point in South Africa's history and in Lucky Dube's career. After decades of struggle, the first democratic elections were held, casting aside the dark shadow of apartheid. For Dube, it was a moment of pride, of hope, and of unity. He was part of a nation coming together, healing old wounds and embracing a new dawn. This atmosphere of change and reconciliation deeply influenced his music. As South Africa basked in the glow of newfound freedom, Lucky Dube's star was also on the rise. He was no longer just a name in the music scene. He was a sensation. His albums were topping charts, his concerts were selling out, and his songs were echoing in every corner of the country. This success was not merely about fame or fortune. It was about influence. Throughout his career, Lucky Dube used his platform to advocate for peace, unity, and equality. He wasn't afraid to speak up, to use his voice for those who didn't have one, to be a beacon of hope in times of despair. His concerts weren't just musical performances. They were gatherings of people from all walks of life coming together to celebrate their shared humanity. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were hurdles, there were challenges, and there were moments when the weight of expectation threatened to overshadow his passion. Yet through it all, Lucky Dube remained steadfast. He kept composing, kept singing, and kept speaking out. In the heart of Johannesburg, a bustling metropolis, Lucky Dube decided to lay down roots. It was a city that mirrored the nation's journey from division to unity, from darkness to light. And here he found not just a home, but a community, a place where he could live his life on his own terms. In the vibrant streets of Johannesburg, Lucky Dube continued to make waves. His music echoed through the urban landscape, resonating with the hopes, dreams, and struggles of the people around him. But it wasn't just his music that made an impact. It was his life, his values, and his commitment to justice. On October 18, 2007, South Africa woke up like any other day. The sun rose over the horizon, birds sang their morning tunes, and people went about their daily routines. It was a day much like any other until tragedy struck. In the afternoon, Lucky Dube and his son, Jackson, were on their way to visit Jackson's soccer team when their vehicle broke down on the side of the road. It was a predicament that countless motorists have found themselves in, minor setback on what seemed to be an ordinary day. But as fate would have it, this moment of mechanical trouble would soon turn into a nightmare. As Dube and his son waited for assistance, 3 men armed with firearms approached them. The attackers were intent on stealing the car, but what transpired next would send shockwaves across the nation and beyond. In a cruel twist of fate, Lucky Dube, the reggae icon who had spent his life spreading messages of peace and unity, was shot and killed during this botched carjacking. His son, Jackson, who had shown promise as a musician in his own right, was also taken from this world, their lives cut short by senseless violence. The news of Dube's death sent ripples of grief and disbelief throughout South Africa and the global music industry. It was as though a part of everyone's soul had been extinguished. The void left by his absence was immeasurable. In the aftermath of this tragedy, thousands gathered in Johannesburg to pay tribute to the fallen star. The streets echoed with the mournful strains of reggae, a fitting send-off for a man who had dedicated his life to this genre. His funeral was not just a somber ceremony, it was a celebration of a life well lived, a life that had touched countless hearts. The impact of this tragedy resonated far beyond the music industry. It was a stark reminder of the challenges that still lay ahead in the journey towards peace and unity. The loss of Dube and his son served as a catalyst, pushing people from all walks of life to come together, to stand united against violence and to work towards a safer, more harmonious society. Today, Lucky Dube's legacy lives on, not just in the hearts of his fans, but in the minds of those who strive for justice and equality. His story serves as a reminder that while music can touch the soul, it can also inspire change. The rhythm of his voice continues to echo through the streets of South Africa and beyond, urging us all to keep moving forward, to keep fighting for a better tomorrow, and to never, ever give up. If you found inspiration in Lucky Dube's story, we invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your stories matter. They can inspire others and build a community of shared experiences. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's honor Lucky Dube's legacy by supporting each other's stories and dreams.